One. Hi everyone, it's Dr. Andrew Orr here, and I'm here on behalf of myself and also what we call the Experts Program. But I'm here with the lovely Zoe Marshall this morning. Hello, Zoe.
Can we just preface to everyone watching that you did not tell me that this was going to be recorded? So this is not, don't even look, just listen, turn the visuals off. Okay.
And I will say to the listeners, when has Zoe Marshall not looked good?
Oh my
Maybe
God, right now, this is the proof. Let's not get into vanity. There's a play here. There's bigger things.
Oh God, you could turn up in a Hessian sack and look good.
That's what I'm wearing. I'm literally wearing that.
Oh, all right. Well, everyone may or may not know Zoe Marshall as Zoe Marshall, but I know you as Zoe Marshall. I don't know you as Mrs Benji Marshall. I just know you as Zoe Marshall.
Yes.
And basically, I understand that you've been in the industry for over 12 years, which I didn't know. There's a lot to Miss Marshall, Mrs. Marshall. So you've got your own column in a newspaper.
Did. This is, oh God, maybe I need to update my resume.
That's like me. I'm sure my bio needs updating. What else? So you had your own radio show with your partner.
I did once upon a time when we were in Brisbane, actually, when I met you.
Yeah. And plus you've been on TV shows. I've seen you on the House of Wellness. I've even seen you pop up on podcasts, and now you've got your own podcast, The Deep.
I do.
That's awesome, by the way. It's a really awesome concept.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's pretty out there. After being in media for so long and being pushed back on all the content that I wanted to discuss, I thought, why not make it myself? So I've done that. So we're season 3 as we speak, and it is pretty intense conversations, and I'm really proud of the work, and people are like loving it. So it's had extreme success. We're almost at 1 million downloads in in half a year. Not even a year. I don't know.
Went to number 1 as well.
Went to number 1. Apple and Spotify have been giving us a lot of love. They love the content. It's very diverse, and they really support diverse content. So it's been incredible. It's been a nice transition into living your purpose, I guess you could say.
I love that because I'm about to start a podcast myself, and it's purely about living with purpose, but a little bit different to what you're doing. But yeah, I think it's important. It's something that we all should be doing because many of us aren't living in our purpose.
Yeah, and I think, it's a privilege to be able to do that, follow your dream and do live your passion, work for your passion. I think that is a privilege. Lots of people don't get the opportunity to do that. So I don't take that for granted at all.
No, not at all. Well, your biggest gig is also being a mum to a beautiful, beautiful child that you have.
My little boy Fox, and then
little boy Fox, yes.
And then another one due in June. Little girl due in June.
Oh, we're breaking it here.
Yeah, so it's a lot. I mean, I don't know how people have more than one child, let alone one child.
I know. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's tough. Having had 3, yes, it's tough. But I don't know. You roll with it.
What do you do?
And you wouldn't change it. Once you've got children, you would never change it.
Yeah.
You would go back and do it all over again.
Yeah, you just skip some of it, Totally.
Yeah, you would. You'd skip some of it, all right. Okay, so it's Endometriosis Awareness Month, and that's why I'm speaking to you. So, I mean, people may or may not know that you suffer from endometriosis.
Yes.
So can you tell us about your journey? Like, when did it start for you? Like, because a lot of women, it's all varying, it can be 10 years to diagnose, it can be 20, it can be...
I think I had when I got my period really early, I was 11.
Wow.
I always remember it being very heavy and thinking that was normal. And it wasn't until I had been through some trauma in my early 20s that I feel like it really came on.
It's common.
So, you know, the hemorrhaging, the intense pain, the blackouts, all of the things. And then I first surgery, also, that's my alarm saying I'm about to talk to you, but we started early. Then so I had my first surgery 2013, which wasn't a specialized endo doctor. It was just a gyno that cut it out, and cut it out, burnt it out. I'm not sure, but he wasn't
an advanced trained surgeon.
Yeah. And then it grew back within, you know, a few months. And then in 2016, I was debilitated again and went to one of the best in the country and had surgery again. But it grew back again really quickly. So I felt, for me, surgeries weren't really doing what they were supposed to do for my body.
Yeah.
And I started to look at other methods to manage.
And that's something that I talk a lot about people, because they say your first surgery should be your best surgery. And often that doesn't happen. But then when you do see someone, I think a lot of it isn't, people aren't being managed well afterwards. And that's where there's a big disconnect for women. They're virtually waiting for the next surgery again, and they're not doing anything in between.
Yeah.
So this is where the multimodality approach is, which is what you've done.
Yeah.
And how does that help you?
I think there's been a huge focus on nutrition and lifestyle, well-being, exercise, those things, mindfulness, like the whole
gamut. Yeah.
But it's been definitely a process. Like, I've worked with lots of doctors like yourself, you know, like I've got a doctor for everything.
Yeah.
And I will always kind of ask you guys all the same questions, get all of the feedback, get all of the, because, you know, everyone has their different ways of treating and healing. And then I'll take what works. So
Right.
it's a long process. And I think that can be quite frustrating for women, because they're just like, fix me now, I need help. But I know that from years and years and years of really being invested in my health, I figured out what works.
Yeah, and I think that's really, really important, because each woman with endometriosis, you might have the diagnosis endo, but you're all different. You've got individual symptoms, and what works for one might not work for another.
Totally. And I can tell that when I'm having sugar and gluten, my endo's so much worse. And I can tell that when I get to that point of, okay, we've got a lot of pain, we've got a lot of bleeding, we've got a lot of clots, what I do now is, they're my first two that I take out of my diet, and I start moving a little bit more. And it's hard, like, because the endo loves the sugar, and that's all you want is the sugar.
Yeah.
So there is that painful process of elimination, but it's short term, it's really tough. Long term, you're going to see the body start to react in different ways. And that's a simple thing that's free. You know, there's lots of other ways that are supporting around that.
Yeah.
But you'll see that your body shifts and changes with weight and holding fluid and things like that too, which I think adds to the symptoms, being symptomatic.
Yeah, that's right. And endo isn't just period pain either. I think a lot of people focus on the period pain aspect, but it can be, like you said, the fluid retention, not feeling great, the endo belly, the whole lot.
Yeah. The constipation, the diarrhea, the flicking in between the two,
alternating.
Just the bleeding. The bleeding can be really hard, because not just when you're losing the blood and the clots, but the recovery from that just takes so long to get you back to normality.
Yeah, and a lot of women are iron deficient too. So
me too, and I'm thalassemic, so it's
a
triple whammy. You know, where it's a really bad thing for me to be losing that much blood.
Yeah, especially that's another thing that's not taken into consideration. There's genetic aspects. There's, you know, you've got European heritage, so then you can have things like thalassemia. there's so many aspects to endo, and then it can be all these things going at once. Your pelvic floor can fire off, the bladder can be not good, the bowel cannot be good, the mental state's not great, and it's just, people are a mess.
Yeah, it's true. I think you have to be quite desperate though, and you kind of have to give up on the surgeries a little bit and that kind of Western medical framework to do the alternate ways, to commit to them, like the acupuncture, the acupressure, all of the kind of microbiome support, health, and then all your supplements. I'm saying all, it doesn't have to be intense. It could literally be,
Yeah,
an iron, fish oil, your gut stuff, or less,
that's correct.
Works.
Yeah.
But I think that getting a lot of your nutrition densely through foods is one way to knock all of that off too, so you're not having to like pump yourself with everything. And you're having, super iron rich, super nutrient dense foods that are going to be doing their job in your body versus you like popping pills.
Yeah, that's correct.
A little bit of preparation, I think, that we all need to do. Like, it needs to be a priority. And I think when you're in chronic pain, it's hard to think about how to navigate that, but it needs to be a priority.
That's right. And one of the things too, I always say to women, a little bit of exercise, even though it can be hard in the beginning, just step by step by step.
I'm there right now. I'm pregnant. I'm like 6.5 months pregnant. I am tired. I am so low in iron. My nutrition is back, but for the first 3 months it wasn't. And my exercise is 1 PT a week and walking a few times a week. And it is so hard. And I just go, and sometimes I'm slower than the grandmas. I really am, but I do it.
Yep.
Because I know, like, I think for everyone listening, if there's one bit of exercise you can do, it's walking, because it is, for the overall benefits, it's such a great place to start,
Absolutely.
especially with your mental health. But physically, it's a great place to check into where you're at. So lots of people, like when I'm super fit, I'm like, oh, walking is so lame. But then you get to this part where you're quite desperate.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful way to gift yourself something, some time to give back to yourself, and it will really help. I mean, don't go when you're having a super bad hemorrhaging day.
No.
But prior, and when you've kind of got your energy back post a period, just push yourself to do it.
Yeah, that's right. And I know, having been through surgery and stuff myself for a chronic condition, that sometimes it might be just walk to the end of the block and back, and then get further and further and further.
I know, it's like, I think when we're dealing with disease and chronic illness or pain, you need to lower expectation.
That's it.
And there is a real balance. And I know we're talking about cutting sugar and gluten and stuff. You have to pick your moments. If you go, oh my God, I am just so low mentally, I need ice cream or something, then there's amazing ranges now that are out there that are sugar-free.
There
aren't crappy sugar either, like a natural sugar base. You can find ways. People are listening to us and want to be able to provide us with the things we need. So there are ways that you can still have comfort, because I know when I'm not well with my endo, it's like heat packs, comfort food, not moving, getting a nanny over to help.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah. This is it.
Asking the neighbors to take my kid or whatever it is. So I think you need to find the way that supports you. But I'm planning on not having endo anymore. So
that's good. I like to hear that, because
thing.
Yeah, and that's it. And you can become asymptomatic. We say that to women. With the proper care, you can be.
And I've been asymptomatic before, and being pregnant is, one of my favorite things is not having periods.
Yeah.
Breastfeeding, one of my favorite things is I breastfeed for so long.
Yeah.
Because that's another benefit, is that I don't have to have a bleed. And I do remember after the last like my periods were kind of spotting and coming back at about 14 months into feeding my baby. And I could tell, I was like, I need a good bleed now. Like I could tell I needed it. And they're quite awful, your first periods after baby.
Absolutely.
And then I kind of cruise with how long I can have sugar for, looking at my symptoms. And then when shit hits the fan, I go, okay, we're back. So I kind of know now, like, where I have to go. And everyone is really different. And I worked with a quite controversial Chinese doctor to fall pregnant with my son. And his whole philosophy is around fasting and allowing the organs and the stomach and digestion to rest, to allow healing in other parts of the body. People have been doing it for centuries.
Absolutely.
Nowadays, we support intermittent fasting, but not kind of that long haul fasting I did, which I understand it's quite controversial. You have to be supported and managed and watched and taken care of through that. You don't just go off and not eat.
That's the trick.
But what I learned from my time with him was there's this sweet spot for my body to be able to function at the highest place. So that's not being too underweight or too overweight. So, and I'm not going to mention numbers or anything because I don't want anyone to compare. But I think it's really important for people to know where their health is at a peak and to know where their body feels good. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have cellulite or you're not going to have jiggly bits. I think it just means, okay, my body can function, it has time to rest, it has time to recuperate, it has time for the cells to do its magic.
That's right. I mean? Yeah, and it's not just about body weight or anything like that, because you can be quite healthy and fit and have a little, like you said, a little bit of cellulite, and no one's perfect. But...
No. And we're not aiming for that. I think the aim is to really be watching your symptoms and seeing if they're, fluctuating, if they're steady, if they're dropping. Because I can see a huge difference when I am low sugar, low gluten, super veggie protein fueled. My body shape changes immediately just from that. And then my symptoms change.
Absolutely. And it's because all those foods are pro-inflammatory. So you take that inflammation out and there's one more bit of inflammation gone.
Yeah. And I think every time I think about that is like, oh, okay, this is going to be really delicious for 5 minutes, but it's going to be super inflammatory later and quite painful. And that domino, it's so hard, I think, so easy to inflame, but much harder to, what's it called when you uninflame?
Yeah, it's harder to regret, like actually harder to get on top of those symptoms again. It is really, really hard.
Absolutely.
And look, one of the things that I say, there are a lot of women sitting at home, and I suppose I don't like to use the word wallowing in it, but they sort of are in some ways, thinking the world's bad and everything. And why I love talking about to people like yourself and others that have actually conquered it and risen above it, despite everything. You've maintained a permanent job, you exercise, you're a mum, you do everything. So what advice would you give to women that are sitting there saying, oh, it can't be done, it can't be done?
I think it's such a hard thing because when you're in that kind of pain, it is so debilitating, and
Absolutely,
it's so hard to see a way out of that. And I totally understand women that become, there are women that have much worse symptoms. Mine were pretty bad, but they're riddled, their lungs, everything is filled. I completely understand how it could be debilitating. I think for me, I had quite a negative reaction when I initially came out and shared my story with endometriosis, that a lot of women attacked me for my version of endometriosis.
Yeah.
that I didn't want to share anymore. I didn't want to label myself as an endo warrior. I didn't want to be a part of the community because it felt very judgmental.
I can
And
understand that. Yeah.
and they were angry. You know, people that are in pain are angry, and I understand. But I think because I was like, well, no, I've experienced endometriosis. I have endometriosis symptoms, but I'm not an endo warrior, because I feel like labeling myself as this victim or this thing doesn't allow me to move through or forward to do the other things. Like, okay, so I've been given this diagnosis. What am I going to do with it? Okay. And it's kind of like plan and attack, and not, I don't want to give the endo the power, right? I have the power, and there are lots of ways that I can manipulate and control it. So I think being a little bit of a control freak, that helped. But I don't think that it's ever been useful for me to label myself as that, because it would be easy to wallow and fall into it. And also I had a lot of symptoms at the time where this wasn't largely discussed or displayed.
No.
So we just had to like cop it and move on.
Yeah.
You can't like take a day off work. Like I remember calling in sick one day, and there was just, I had to lie about what I was sick about, because no one would respect or think this was a real thing. So I think that there was no acknowledgement that that was even a big deal back then.
Which is terrible, really.
Which is terrible, but it also kind of gives you that gusto of like, well, get on with it, you know, like get on with it. And that's really tricky when you're on endone and you can't drive and all of that stuff. But I think now I go, well, I don't want to be on meds. I don't want to be passing out in the bathroom. I don't want surgeries. So what can I do? And I'm willing to put my money and my energy into those ways. It does help.
It
Does help.
does.
You do feel more in control. You don't feel like you're losing your life to a disease.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's important not to buy into that label. And I see that a lot in groups these days. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are suffering, but then they do attack. And I think some of the groups now are becoming quite toxic. And I always say to people like you and I, we are trying to inspire people. And if your tribe around you is not supporting you and keeping you held down, get out.
And I don't think anyone will ever understand endometriosis unless you have it.
Correct.
Just will not. You can't. I remember being asymptomatic after working with that Chinese doctor, and I had like a normal girl period. And I was like, this is amazing. These cramps, this bleeding, this is amazing. You will never get it if that's your reality.
Yeah, that is exactly right. That is very true. Where do you think we're going wrong with endo? Because I know we haven't got much time with you this morning, but where do you think we're going wrong with endo?
I think that we are living in a patriarchy that doesn't necessarily honor women's health and women's rights as much as it does men. And I think that we are so used to women getting on with it, whether that's with childbirth, whether that is juggling jobs as a single mom, whether that is chronic pain. We don't honor women and how to support them. And I think if we looked around the world, there would be different systems in place for women that are suffering. But here we just don't think it's a big deal. There's no real funding behind it. There is no real like rushed research. No one really cares that much. So I think that's where we're going wrong. I think that we don't value women's health as much as we should.
That's exactly right. And there seems to be a big push for education and telling people about things, but there's also no education of where to go. Okay, you've got the information, but where do you go?
Or like, okay, so I've got this, but I'm a student, or I've got this and I don't have the funds to go and see you or a naturopath or a specialist doctor, or like, this is an expensive disease to have, let alone sanitary pads costing so much money. You know, now, thank God, we've got underpants and cups and things that we can bleed into that are reusable and good for the environment. But there is no plan in place to support or fund women that want to get help. There isn't.
And there needs to be. It's something that I think some of us have been looking into, and there should be more funding and things like that.
Yeah.
What would be your 5 top things to say to a woman with endo if you were to hear that, you know, someone's just newly been diagnosed, or someone that's even just got period pain? What's the top 5 things you'd say to women?
I think, you know, perhaps if you're not wanting to go down the surgery route, because I think we immediately go endo surgery. I think if you weren't going down that route, to really do some research, like you've got a lot of free literature as well that people can access to read about the, you know, the best first steps. So I would look at not getting overwhelmed in forums. I would go straight to like doctors and practitioners you trust and look at their tools, and it'll all be nutrition, supplements, mental health, exercise, right? So that's 4. And then I think the 5th one would be talking to your support system and loved ones that this is what you've been diagnosed with and this is what is coming up for you and what you're going to need as support when these things occur. Because it's really great doing the work yourself, but if your husband's there going, mate, get up and cook the dinner, like the kids are crying and you're like in chronic pain, there's going to be an issue. So I think discussing it with your support structure, and then doing the kind of the best you can to be informed about what is going to support your health to eliminate your symptoms.
And as Mel Gregg said this morning, if you are with a partner that's not supportive, kick him to the curb.
That would be so Mel. My advice would be go get therapy and talk it through.
My advice would be the same thing, and talk about it.
Yeah, but I think what you're doing is excellent and a great resource for people like myself. I would have loved this, you know, however many years ago. So
yeah, it's important. And having 2 daughters that have the disease as well, I think it's really important to get it out there. And also men, I think that's part of the reason why I've come on, is I want men to be more supportive. Because we can support our family, our partners. I'm sure your partner supports you 100%, and just as you support him. So it's very, very, very important.
Yeah, thank you.
No, that's all right. Well, thank you for your time this morning. I know you're on a tight schedule. You probably got
I actually have an interview with, I'm doing an endometriosis interview for The Deep next, actually, with Erin, who is the star of Love Island. She's the new ambassador for Endo Australia, and she's got just a horrific story. So we're going to do more endo. We're not finished now.
That's great. I love it. I love it. I love it. And as I said to you at some stage, I'd love to interview you just for you on a whole different front.
Sure.
All right, Zoe Marshall, thank you. It's always a pleasure. And despite what you say, you look amazing all the time anyway.
I'm going now. Thank you so much.
All right, you take care.
Bye.
Bye.